Hello everyone and welcome to a bonus video with me, Frank Cho. These are the tools that I will be using. These are Micron Pigma pens 08, 01, 05, and the brush pen. I'm going to do something a little different today. This is the drawing that I did earlier this year. I'm going to actually finish inking this drawing. The drawing is of Conquest from the latest Invincible season. So I went ahead and already inked, or should I say brushed in a lot of the heavy blacks earlier today. And now they're completely dry. I am actually going to go in and start adding the details. And that's what I'm going to do. So this is an image of Invincible sitting on his basically makeshift throne that he made with the debris, with the rock debris and all that. And now, if you notice, with the heavy inks, I've already pretty much blocked in all the deep shadows and kind of give you like a general overview of how the whole shadow and light scheme is played out. So the light source that I have is kind of like in that 12 o'clock position on the clock. So there will be a lot of deep shadows, you know, uh, under the head and and everything else, giving it a very menacing kind of look. Now I really love inking in the rocks. That's actually pretty much the whole point of this exercise is showing you guys how I add texture to rocks and figures in general. Now the rock textures is always fun to me because now I have the deep shadows. I'm basically going to start cross-hatching the hell out of it. And that's always the fun part for me, just adding that great texture. Like people are going to ask me, well, how did I learn this technique? Just basically cross-hatching and graying it out. It's just kind of like trial and error. I noticed that Barry Windsor Smith had this really fantastic inking style where he did a lot of cross-hatching. So that was part of it. And then another inspiration was Franklin Booth. Franklin Booth is an art hero of mine, and I would often look at his stuff and to kind of like figure out how to add that gray tone into a drawing. And another inking master that I often look into is J.C. Cole, Coll. And he's another old Golden Age illustrator who basically was a virtuoso when it comes to ink drawing. And he would do these very organic, chaotic lines, but often just comes out perfect. Had that perfect blend of gray tone and deep shadows and highlights and all that. So those guys I would often think about and look into, but mainly it's Franklin Booth and J.C. Cole. And also every now and then I look at Rudy Nabries for his inking. Ruby, yeah, Rudy Nabries was a fantastic artist and inker. He's mainly known for his inking. He did a brilliant job of inking John Buscema on Conan. So if you see those old Savage Sword of Conan magazine, you'll know what I'm talking about. I mean, Rudy Nabries' ink over John Buscema was just absolutely top notch. So with this, when I'm inking, or actually when I'm drawing in general, this is how I truly draw. I'm constantly rotating the paper to give it that natural slant in my ink lines or pencil lines. So that's something that you don't see when I do my drawing videos, because when I do my drawing videos, I actually tape down the paper onto my the drawing surface, and so I can't move the paper around like I'm doing here. And so it is a little bit of a handicap. But since it's pencil, it doesn't really bother me much. But when I'm inking, inking is a permanent line, so I have to have a more freedom to create these intricate lines. So that's why you see me just constantly rotating the paper around to to get that, to achieve that natural organic slant in my ink lines. So essentially, I'm just cross hatching to get that gray tone, and that's always if you done right, it's always a very cool effect. So since I got the deep shadows, I'm just adding the kind of like the gray tone, the mid tone on those rocks. Actually, another guy who does a really great job of achieving these intricate texture and gray tone on stuff is Travis Charest, and he's another absolute master artist and inker. Although he did change his style in recent years. He kind of like disappeared after he had a kid. He kind of went on a semi-retirement and kind of disappeared for like about 10 years, and then he finally came out of his seclusion and started doing comics again. But it's kind of really weird because his style has changed somewhat. I mean, it's still Travis, but his style has changed. It's not quite the same Travis from like 10, 15 years ago when he was just absolute monster at everything he touched and drew. His style is a little different. It's still intricate, but it's very hard to put my finger on it. It's very subtle, and he's still the same Travis, but something is missing, and I never could figure out what that is. And someone told me that Travis, the reason why the whatever it factor that he had that's missing is that he switched over to digital drawing. So he does all of his artwork on tablets. So he's not actually drawing on paper and pen anymore. Someone told me. So that may be the reason. But Travis is another absolute fantastic artist that I often look for inspiration. And there I am just adding more texture. Now going back to Conquest. Now Conquest is a Viltrumite warrior. So he is like the second most powerful Viltrumite in the Viltrumite Empire. And so he's basically, next to the emperor of the Viltrumite Empire, he's the second most strongest warrior in that whole group. And so, if I remember correctly, he is like the emperor's dog. So he's kind of like the nuclear option if other if the other Viltrumite warriors get out of line or won't obey the emperor's command. Conquest is sent to basically you know put that other Viltrumite in his place and make him obey the emperor's command. And so in the cartoon series and the comic book, he is sent by the emperor to basically discipline Invincible to basically I guess prepare Earth for Viltrumite conquest, or basically Viltrumite control, to soften Earth, to make Earth part of the Viltrumite Empire. And so, but Invincible, basically Nolan, Invincible's dad, and Invincible ultimately disobeyed the Emperor's command, and decide to rebel against the Viltrumite Empire. So the Emperor of Viltrumite sent Conquest to basically destroy Invincible and Nolan and Earth. So he's actually a absolutely brutal brutal figure. So there I am. I'm using the brush pen, Micron Pigma brush pen, which I absolutely love. So originally I didn't use the Micron Pigma pen brush pen to do all those deep blacks. The original those deep heavy black area was done with just a regular watercolor brush with India ink, Speedball Super Black India ink. The great thing about the Micron Pigma pen, brush pen, is that once it kind of starts drying out a little bit, it's perfect for drawing, inking in hair for brunette, to kind of like brush in the hair texture, and it just has that kind of that gives that soft touch, which I notice that I can't mimic with other brushes. But Micron Pigma, once it starts drying out, it's just perfect for it. It's almost like Robert Fawcett. So Robert Fawcett was another fantastic illustrator from the 40s and 50s and 60s, and his technique, his main technique, he would often use dried out ink, dried out markers, or drying out markers. And he would often raid his friends' art studios for drying out markers that his friends would just throw away, and he'll grab all of them, and he would just use those half dead markers and create these fine lines. And since they're drying out, the tips use basically frays and splits. So you have like this kind of like this unique split hair brush technique, but it's markers. And he would just create this like really delicate, very unique line. So if you guys get a chance, look at Robert Fawcett when it comes to inking. He's another absolute master artist. Yeah, so at this point, I'm just like graying out everything, graying out all the rock textures and stuff like that. So you see me doing these long, horizontal ink strokes. That's just basically inspired by Franklin Booth. So when you're inking in this style, you don't want to do too many this scribbly line. A lot of these like fuzzy scribbly line. You don't want that. You want to be very concise and bold. And if you want to create a like a gray tone effect, you just cross hatch it. So you basically go one way with the ink line and then rotate the paper and go the other way. And so creating this kind of like a, like a parallel cross hatching lines, parallel and perpendicular cross hatching lines. So the overall effect that I'm trying to do is the focal point. If you really pay attention, the focal point of the image is Conquest's head and upper torso. So there is like a kind of a spotlight approach to the overall drawings. So as you can see, I'm actually I'm actually going darker around that, around the head and the upper torso, and so that area will be the most light, the most brightest, or the lightest. I won't be doing too many ink lines over there, but all the surrounding area, you'll see me adding texture and gray toning it out. So it's like having this spotlight on the upper body, kind of like the Caravaggio approach to drawing and painting. So you have this chiaroscuro approach. Am I pronouncing that right? So basically, like an interplay of light and shadow, you know. So if you kind of stay true to the light source, you can achieve this really cool 3D effect in your drawings. So always be mindful of your light source. So adding those long vertical or horizontal strokes. Now, people ask me how often or how long does it take you to a drawing like this? It often takes me 2 days. 1 day to pencil and 1 day to ink. Now, this portion of the inking so far, I'm at like just from start to finish when I start laying in the deep heavy black ink brush strokes in the beginning, which I didn't videotape. That took about like an hour or a little under an hour, and then here I am cross hatching. That's gonna take another couple of hours. I mean, I streamlined it a bit for this video. But I'm probably gonna do like another pass at it, after I finish filming this. So once I finish inking for this video, I often just like walk away and then come back a few hours later and just kind of see it with fresh eye to see if what I've missed and if there's any like stray marks or stuff that doesn't look right. Then I basically go in and do a little bit more inking and touch ups and fixing stuff like that. So you can see me just constantly like switching out my pens. The reason I'm doing that is basically texture. I basically rotate going in with like a thicker line to thinner lines. So since I'm adding more slightly darker, trying to achieve a slightly darker gray tone, I went with a thicker nib on my micron brush pen. Not my brush pen, but micron pen. So when I'm drawing rocks, it's just all about texture. Now, the guy who had an absolute master control of brush line was Al Williamson. Now, there's another artist that I look at all the time. Al was just absolute fantastic artist. I think he's one of my favorite artists of all time. If you get a chance, look up Secret Agent Corrigan, Secret Agent X9 comic strip that he did, written by Archie Goodwin and drawn by Al Williamson. So when you look at it, you could kind of. It's a shame that Al never did a James Bond comic because I think he would have been perfect, absolutely perfect for a James Bond comic. Because Al had this like great eye for like spotting blacks and just have this like great feel for like black and white image. He know when to like put in that deep shadow, that put in that black ink, and then when not to, so create this like really beautiful, rich black and white image. Absolutely perfect for film noir kind of type stuff, and absolutely perfect for James Bond, I thought, because Al has this like really classical sense of drawing. So all of his figure has this beautiful classical feel to it. Because Al was a big fan of Alex Raymond, who did Flash Gordon and Rip Kirby and Secret Agent X9 and Jungle Jim, and Al and Alex Raymond was everything Alex Raymond did was just had this like sense of classic proportion, like a strong beauty to it, like a graceful beauty to it, and Al was influenced by that, and Al Williamson, I thought, took it to the next level, and so everything he drew just had this more, just more refined. Alex Raymond was just absolute master, but Al kind of added his own flair, which was a more of a cinematic flair. So his stuff is more, to me, looked more like a beautiful movie, like a beautiful movie still. Yeah, I know a lot of people ask me, is that alien? Is that an alien head? And the answer is yes. I thought it'd be kind of funny to have Conquest just absolutely destroyed an alien. So there's Al Williamson, who I often looked at for inspiration, and another guy that I often look at for inspiration is Frank Frazetta. Now, Frank Frazetta is mainly known for his painting, and his paintings were absolutely dynamic. It's a right blend of dynamic figure work and colors. Frank Frazetta really was a very colorful painter. And besides that, Frank had a very delicate touch when it came to inking, when it came to black and white brush ink. And I can't. I can't do what Frank did. I mean, his handling of ink brush is just so refined, which is kind of funny because like Frank is a very kind of a rough, dynamic guy, and it always amazes me that he has such a very delicate hand when it comes to using a brush. When he did his black and white comics, so he would just have this really master control of just creating this very delicate, wispy brush stroke. And the only person who actually kind of came to achieving the same effect, I thought, was Dave Stevens. So Dave Stevens also had a very delicate brush stroke, you know. Well, actually, now think about it, another guy who actually may have outdone Frank Frank Frazetta comes to delicate brushstroke is Mark Schultz. Now Mark Schultz does this beautiful split hair brush technique, which was I think it was inspired by what was that guy's name? Dan Dan something. Man, it sucks. I mean that name is at the tip of my brain. Dan. It's gonna just like drive me crazy. I probably gonna remember as soon as I finish, as soon as I stop the video, and the name's gonna just pop in my brain. Dan something, but this Dan guy was an artist who did a lot of stuff in the 1920s, and he mainly worked in the newspaper, in the newsprint. So that's why a lot of his stuff never survived, unlike Franklin Booth and J.C. Cole. And so, but if you get a chance to find his stuff, you will see where Mark Schultz get his inspiration from. That split hair technique, which is absolutely wild. I've never seen anyone done what Mark Schultz does, and Mark is an absolute master. He is in a class by himself. I've tried it, and I can do it, but it's such a long, tedious process, and it just like I just can't keep up with it. I mean, it's like after a while, I just like give up because it just takes so long. I mean, you need like a patient of a monk to work in that style, and Mark Schultz just nails it every time. God, what is that guy's name? Dan. This is gonna drive me crazy. I God, I hate that. Just it's at the tip of my brain. So as you notice, I actually throw in a lot of names from golden age of illustration. So if you want to be a really solid comic book artist, look beyond comics. Don't just focus on comic book artists. Look at other artists from different genres. And for me, I often looked at a lot of golden age illustrators, American golden age illustrators, and 19th century artists in general. I mean, I love the whole 19th century art field. That's when everything was happening. So you have the Romantic movement, you have the neoclassical movement. Just going down history, you have the Royal Academy style. You have Impressionist. You have the Art Nouveau, and all these different styles that just was just all of it happening in that century. And then from there, it basically branched out into the golden age of Illustrator. Now, the golden age of Illustrator was just a completely different animal because it was just pure commercialism. But they took a lot of the great artists of that era took a lot of it from learned a lot from the 19th century artists, and and then I basically, for me, I naturally gravitated toward all those guys. So I looked at the golden age illustrators and then the 19th century illustrators or artists. So I'm using the Micron Pigma brush pen to kind of give it that feathered look, that soft feathered look. So I'm reinforcing the feathering and going with the regular Micron Pigma pen, with the regular tip. So if you want to create that, I mean, a lot of people think that I use brush to ink majority of my of my work. And I don't. It's mainly just pure micron pigment pen. They're essentially art markers. And people are just kind of like amazed that I can achieve this thick to thin ink line, like a brush line. And it's actually kind of like easy. So what I'm doing there is to achieve that line is I basically press down hard. When you press down hard on a micron pigment pen, you create this like thick line, and as I'm like dragging it across the paper, you kind of let up the pressure, which causes the line to thin out. And so that's why people get confused that I'm just using a marker and not a brush. And that just comes with practice. I mean, I've been doing this for like close to 30 years at this point. And drawing that, inking in that belt. So if you notice, like the leg area, I actually put in a lot of ink lines. That again reinforces that kind of like that spotlight on the upper torso and the head. So that whole area is kind of like a lit up, and everything outside of that circular area is darker. So that the leg will be darker, the rocks behind him will be darker, and all that. So when you're drawing villain, so when you're like inking and drawing villains like Conquest, I often like to kind of like put in a lot of deep shadows into the figure work. So having this like deep shadows kind of create this kind of like a dramatic appearance, almost like a dramatic, menacing appearance. So just like a little kind of like a psychological thing. Drawing his giant robot hand. So if I remember correctly, the reason why or how he lost his Conquest lost his hand, his right hand, right, or actually half of his arm, right arm, and that giant scar across his face where he's blinded in one eye. There I am using the template to kind of get that get that uniform circular look, and using the circular template to kind of like outline the symbol on his chest. So, so going back, the reason or how he lost his half his arm and how he got blinded, got his half his face torn up, is I think he was, if I remember correctly, he went to the Savage Planet, and he fought a creature called Ragnar, and I think for whatever reason, his regenerative power wasn't quite working on that planet. So when he got injured, he never recovered from it, and that's why his blind eye, where that side of the face that he got injured, it never regenerated and healed. So that's why he's blinded in that one eye, and his arm, basically his arm never grew back. I mean, Conquest is a very interesting character. I mean, he's essentially a psychopath. He doesn't kill and destroy civilization out of duty for the empire. He just does it because it amuses him. He just enjoys it, enjoying destroying things. So he has that prosthetic arm. Kind of like Hellboy. He has that big, artificial, kind of gloved hand. But unlike Hellboy, it's a little bit more. It's more proportionate to the body. So there I am drawing the scar. So I'm using a 0 1 size marker to achieve that really thin line. So giving him creases on his forehead, crow's feet around his eyes, and that kind of that receding hairline. I mean, he must be one of the oldest Veltramite of the Empire. To me, sometimes when I draw him, I kind of think of Bruce Wayne, old Batman from The Dark Knight Returns. It is like older, heavier, more muscular figure who was just completely jaded with the world. And I'm gonna ink in the so inking that big giant Wilford Brimley mustache. And that soup catcher. The more I draw Conquest, the more I actually enjoy the overall design of the character. I mean, Ryan Otley did an absolute fantastic job of drawing him. I mean, Ryan is one of my favorite artists in the business. I mean, no one can draw just mayhem and just blood splatter. I mean, I've never seen a guy who draw blood splatter like Ryan Otley does. I mean, his stuff is just absolutely awesome. And just I'm adding the final touches around the eye. Tweaking that gloved hand. Adding more texture. Just adding kind of like feathering in that the deep shadowed area to kind of to make sure that the shadows transition better, kind of have like a softer edge. I really love inking. I really just inking just relaxes me. It's I go into like a meditative state where I'm just kind of like drawing in the line. With each line I'm creating texture and shadows and light. So it's a very fun meditative process. Just adding kind of the cracked dome of the alien. Just adding more shadows. More texture and all that. So, I mean, there it is. I mean, at this point, I'm done. I'm gonna just walk away and come back later with fresh eyes to do any more tweaks and all that. So there it is, Conquest from Invincible.